alias, also known as TikTok Taryn online. I'm a digital creator, emerging actress, and former FBI employee with a master's in forensic and legal psychology. Several years ago, I survived a workplace shooting that claimed the lives of two of my colleagues who I considered family, and as you can imagine, that turned my world upside down. And as a result, I turned to content creation as part of my healing journey. So today I'm honored to not only be here as a full-time creative, but with Authority Magazine to share 5 things that I did to reinvent myself and really rebuild my life after trauma. The first thing I did was really more of an accident. I redefined my boundaries and became much more selective in who had access to me and my time and my energy, because my emotional capacity at that point was 0. Before the incident, I was introverted but still social. I'd make my rounds in the office and say yes to any opportunity that would get me hands-on experience. And I like to think that I was adaptable and patient and just go with the flow. Whereas afterwards, I found myself isolating and withdrawing from a lot of things because my emotions were so magnified. It was like I was either angry or irritated or completely numb to everything. There was no in between. It was very extreme. So I found myself saying no more often and yes to rest and giving myself grace if I wasn't as motivated as I wanted to be or getting as much done as I wanted to. I sort of cocooned myself as a form of self-protection, which I think in the beginning was a necessary coping mechanism, but over time I learned quickly that if not used in moderation, that could actually become a crutch. And so I think boundaries are a wonderful thing so long as we find balance with them. If I'm being honest, I'm still learning. The second thing I did, I recognize not everyone may have the luxury of doing so. Please keep that in mind. I was able to relocate and change my environment. As you can imagine, being at work became incredibly triggering, whether it was seeing my friends' faces memorialized in the lobby as the first thing I saw every day, or sitting across from their desks that were left untouched for a period of time. They thought they were coming back and they didn't. It wasn't something like that. It was running into people in the hallways who didn't know how to talk to me and I didn't know how to talk to them. And so what was once a social environment became incredibly suffocating. So for a period of time, I really tried to find sanctuary with my squad. Thankfully, due to the nature of our work, we were behind closed doors, and that worked for a little bit until it didn't. About 8 months after the incident, and put in for a hardship transfer. I was able to continue my work in this smaller office, but I realized I was still too close in proximity to my PTSD, and leaving the bureau was already kind of lingering in the back of my mind the more that time went on after the shooting. I didn't take leaving lightly because this was a career that I had spent a decade pursuing. So I think finding sanctuary in my squad, the TDY, the hardship transfer, allowed me to say, I've done everything I can to make this work and it's not working. And that gave me the freedom to really explore who I was outside of law enforcement. And thankfully to this day, I haven't looked back and I have no regrets. The third thing I did sort of ties into the first one with regards to boundaries. I reconnected with people and found comfort in community. So for a while, like I said, my social circle shrank because I was cocooning in an attempt to protect myself. Once I realized it was turning into a crutch, I was like, okay, we need to slowly, get back out there. I originally leaned on my therapist. I went to therapy once a week, and fellow trauma survivors, they also became somewhat of a lifeline for me. It makes you feel seen, kind of without having to explain or say anything. Like they just get it. Outside of that, I also started joining more creator communities. So I made new friends through her campus media and Canopy and Truly Beauty, and just finding myself outside of law enforcement and rediscovering, those little joys was really helpful. Of course, lastly, my family, their unconditional love and support, welcoming me not only home, but giving me grace to rest and reinvent myself and rediscover those joys was really helpful. That includes my fur babies. So I don't think I covered this enough in the interview, but if you have animals or have a way to get access to animals, I think their unconditional love is so understated. Even had emotional support animals brought into the office for a time, and I think it was the first time like anybody smiled for like months. So, about a year later, after I left the bureau, I ended up getting my own fur babies. They really gave me something else to care for when I couldn't care for myself. And so I really want to emphasize, especially when the people around you don't know how to be there for you, or if you don't have a support system, find a way to put yourself around animals, because that is so understated. It has helped me tremendously. The fourth thing I did was I rediscovered my inner child and leaned on her heavily to reinvent myself. I know this may sound backwards, reverting to childhood comforts, but I swear it was instrumental in rewiring my brain to once again just find those little joys, because my identity had collapsed. My support system again was small, and I really tried to focus on things that made me feel safe. So I went back to my favorite hobbies, my favorite food, my favorite songs, my favorite movies, those types of things. I painted my room glitter pink, dyed my hair rainbow colors. You know how they say when you're going through something, you do something crazy to your hair. That was me. I had my hair rainbow for months. I started reading romantasy books and watched Jurassic Park one too many times. So eventually I started making my silly little TikToks again. I had stopped creating for like 2 months. And in doing so, by honoring my inner child, I was able to reinvent myself into the adult, the woman that I want to be and who is standing here today. The fifth thing I did was I reframed my self-worth and released my self-doubt. Again, this ties into my inner child. So the more I found things that made me feel happy or more confident or just like more me, that new sense of normalcy, the less I cared about what others think. To be honest, I already didn't kind of care after the shooting because I was too exhausted to care. I was numb to everything. And so what may have started as exhaustion eventually turned into an executive decision, because in my mind, I was like, I've survived the worst. You know how people say when you've hit rock bottom, there's nowhere to go but up. I'd finally hit that point. I realized nothing could hurt me as much as my trauma had hurt me. I learned to start doing what I like to call getting comfortable being cringe. That's kind of like my motto. And I did this through content creation. So whether it was a silly dance trend, I can't dance to save my life, or a transition or an acting audio, I gradually found not my way back to myself, but again, this new sense of normalcy. I guess I want to end with, if you're navigating change or healing from trauma, or even just trying to support a loved one who is trying to navigate this, be gentle with yourself. And if all you did today was survive, I see you. I'm so proud of you. And I hope you know that you're not alone, and you're always, always welcome to my corner of the internet. Thank you for watching.